Hey yourself. So you've been researching a bunch on liberal thinking mindset communication and conservative thinking mindset communication and trying to understand the differences between the two. Big reason is because you're more liberally minded and you really want to be better at talking with people who are more conservatively minded, as well as better at listening, understanding where that side is coming from. And it's something that is kind of exciting of a thought. Another article was talking about the concept of agency and systems if you're liberally minded or conservatively minded. An agency is the concept that you have more choice in the matter. You have more ability to influence things that happen. Systems. System-minded is more like luck is going to influence you. The system's going to influence you. An example of this would be like the accident of our birth. That is more influential in the mindset of a liberal-minded person than it is in a conservative-minded person. So if someone was like born into a rich family and they didn't have to pay for college, that is considered more influential if you're liberally minded than if you're conservatively minded. Where a conservatively minded person could imagine someone being born into a poorer family who could not afford to pay for them to get college, and so they have student debt. And when they have that experience, they argue that that person could still work hard to achieve the same level of success as the person who didn't have to pay for school. That makes sense, the concept of agency versus the concept of like systems affecting you. As a liberal-leaning person, to me, I'm like, this obviously is going to make it way easier to succeed, so if we did this over a grand scale, we would see more success here than we saw in this group that didn't have the support like this other group that had the free college. But I also understand the concept of agency, where to be successful, you have to work hard. You can absolutely have someone be given everything and then they don't do anything, or someone who doesn't get anything and then they're super successful. We see that happen. It kind of reminds me of what is known as the survivor bias. This is this concept that you only hear about the successes and not the failures. Famous example of this was with World War II planes in the UK. Basically, airplanes would be flying over to Germany to do bombing runs, and when they come back, they would look at the airplanes and see where all the bullets hit, and they saw that the wings were all completely filled with bullets. And so the mindset was like, well, we should armor the wings because nobody's shooting the cabin and the fuselage. But that was incorrect, because it was only the planes that were coming back that had the data. Basically, you can get shot in the wing, but you can't get shot in the cabin. Makes sense because you fly in the cabin, but you don't fly in the wing. So what the data was showing is where you can get shot, rather than where it was somewhere to be armored. Grammar. Anywho's, the concept here is that for a lot of this stuff, it's easy to look at the survivors, the people who are successful, and they all worked really hard. But the failures also worked really hard. But they failed too, right? Like that's one of the situations where it's important to remember that success isn't just working hard. It's also this luck and opportunity, because when we hear about it, we hear about people who are always working hard, but that's just one of the pieces that makes it successful. What this really showed me too, in a very interesting connection, was how this connected to COVID-19. Specifically, how when there is agency, they also talked about the concept of people dealing with an opponent. So if you're more conservative leaning, you see the world more of an us versus them style than if you're liberal leaning. What I mean by that is if you're liberal leaning, people will tell you statistics about wearing a mask to fight COVID-19 and how it lowers the percentage of transmission. That doesn't mean as much to someone who's conservative minded because of the agency purpose. What's going on is if you change the storyline to something like, COVID-19 is going to infect your lungs to turn your immune system against you so that you can become a weapon of mass destruction against other innocent Americans. It doesn't care about who it kills in its process. It is here to just reproduce in all the lungs. You're a breeding station for COVID-19. So wear a mask and fight back against it. You will force it into your body where it will die because you are stronger than the COVID-19. And you want to keep the American economy working? Well, keep getting takeout, keep ordering things online, and we're patriots, and we fight against the problem. I mean, that sounds really funny. America kind of thing, but what's interesting is it does actually sound America, right? Like, we can do it together. We're gonna fight against this. And so it turns out that if you're more conservative leaning, then the kind of mindset of discussing COVID-19 as an enemy, rather than COVID-19 as a force that just sort of happens, would be more effective. It's actually very interesting of a concept, and especially can be seen in some of the conversations about COVID-19 conspiracies. They're always created by someone, right? To attack something. All the conspiracies are that way. They're never just, it happened, right? It's an interesting idea there. So for me, the thing to remember here is if I'm going to be talking about systems and agency, I need to make sure that I acknowledge the concept that if you're more conservative leaning, you're going to be more interested in knowing how you yourself can influence things. Anyway, that's another lesson from me.